Hey solos, so you're thinking of going to Walt Disney World this year all by yourself, and you're actually thinking of going a few times, and you're like, is an annual pass worth it? Well, solo spoiler, it can be worth it, and it's actually a really great accessory for solo trip planning, but it might not be everything it's cracked up to be. And in this episode, I'm going to talk about why. Hi, everyone, it's Samantha. Olaf may not know who Samantha is, but now you do, and welcome to Disney Solo Magic, the #1 podcast for solo travel to Disney World. In this episode, I'm going to talk all about the annual pass. I'm going to talk about what my experience was like being a solo traveler with an annual pass and what it's been like not having an annual pass over the last few months. And I have really learned quite a lot about myself and solo traveling regarding the annual pass from these last experiences. From these last trips without it, the longing. So I'm excited to tell you all about it. All right, so all the social media out there, yeah, I'm just going to stop apologizing for not updating social media, but you know it's there. Patreon is also there. Thank you so much for the members, and I really just appreciate that level of support. I actually have created a a blog to this particular episode because I know that it's the type of thing. I mean, I don't know, maybe it's just like a millennial or a zennial or a Gen X thing, but there's certain things regarding like money and decision making that it's kind of better to see as well as hear. So I thought it would just kind of be useful. So that is there. It's actually on Patreon free for everybody, so don't worry about that. But if you want to become a paid Patreon member, then you also get reflections on all the episodes and other types of goodies when I am particularly on the ball. But as I mentioned in another episode, like I got a new job, kind of like I work as a consultant, but anyway, it feels like a full-time job. I feel like I got a full-time job at the end of November, and I'm working on different laptops, and so my workflow was a little bit different, but you all peer pressured me into going to Disney for the Festival of the Arts. So even though last episode I was like, okay, well, I canceled my trip, but no, this past week, thanks to gentle encouragement from the listeners, I booked a one-night trip at the end of January to go to the Festival of the Arts, to try all the foods and all that stuff. So to say thank you, I guess, for peer pressuring me, what I've done for Patreon members is that you can go and like vote essentially on the foods that you want me to try. Because what I want to do when I am there is I want to record an episode like I did like a year ago when I was recording my 4 parks in one day, and I want to go around and try all these different foods, and I want to give reviews and make that into an episode. So if you want to hear a particular food reviewed, then go on, you can sign up for a free trial or whatever and vote on the food, and then I'll make sure to call you out and say thank you when I am trying it, unless it's terrible, and then it will be a sarcastic thank you. So you can listen to this on Apple, Spotify, and on YouTube. Please, please, please make sure you subscribe, rate, and review all of that stuff. Please share it with others. I really want to increase the listenership this year. And I love the numbers that we have, but they've been kind of steady. And the thing is, I know that there are so many people who could benefit from being a part of this community and hearing other people's solo stories. And so help me connect with them. That's what's so great about reviewing and subscribing, but also just sharing and recommending is super awesome. I've mentioned before that I'm having an issue with YouTube, and I'm still having an issue. It will publish and then it will go private. I have tried a lot of different ways to solve this problem, and I haven't solved it yet. So if you primarily listen to it on YouTube, I apologize for you not getting the episodes right away, I guess. I don't know. So I'm trying to figure it out. Speaking of late, although this is not YouTube's fault, it's mine, I still have the episode that I am planning on editing about my December trip. That's going to go up next week. And then I have a really great episode about being a DVC owner. So that is also coming up. And then I have another interview with a Dapper Danielle about her new book on Epcot. Very, very exciting. So it's going to be a really great winter full of content. And again, make sure you subscribe so you know what's coming up. All right, let's get into it. Let's talk annual passes. All right. So I know I just ended by saying annual passes, but we're actually just going to talk about one annual pass in this particular episode. And we're going to be talking about the Incredipass. Right now, it's about there are other cheaper options, but you need to be a Florida resident. I think there might be another deal right now for military members. I'm not quite sure, but if you're in that category, go and check that out. The when you look at the price for the Florida residents annual passes, you're going to be like, "Ooh, who do I know in Florida where I can say I live?" I think all the tricks have been done, so don't try and figure all that out. We're just going to talk about the Incredipass, which is the pass for everyone outside of Florida, everyone outside the US, which includes me. I'm Canadian, as you probably know, and this is the one that you are going to get if you are an out-of-state Florida resident. Now, I have thought about doing an annual pass episode before. In fact, one listener early on had suggested this as an episode, and I didn't quite know what to say, but I had a real realization as I was like figuring out this one night trip to Disney this month about I am making different types of decisions about my solo trip because I don't have an annual pass. So I was an annual pass holder for 2 years, and then in April I let it expire. And so this past year, since April, I haven't had an annual pass, and it has really shaped my solo trips differently. So I thought that because I was like, how much is one day parks? Oh my God. Because I was like struggling with that, I thought this is actually the perfect opportunity for me to remind myself it's not a good year to have an annual pass, and maybe to talk about the pros and cons of having an annual pass for your potential solo travels this year. So what is the Incredipass? Now, first you might hear people talk about being a magic key holder. That's Disneyland. That has nothing to do with the annual passes at Walt Disney World. We're talking about the Incredipass, which is the most expensive pass that there is. It's the only pass for out-of-state park goers, but sometimes you hear people talk about blackout days and things like that. The thing about the Incredipass is that it's incredible. See what I did there? It's incredible. There are no blackout dates. You do need to make park reservations. You can have 5 at a time. And so, for example, some people that have Florida passes, it's like impossible for them to get in on like Thanksgiving, for example, because there's a lot of blackout dates. With the Incredipass, you don't have blackout dates, but you have to make park reservations in advance. And so a day like Thanksgiving, it might be difficult, but it's not impossible. Here's the other thing. When you're a solo, it is sometimes easy once you're there to talk to a cast member to see if you can get into a park, even if there are no park reservations. If you are a family of 7, I mean, sure you can ask, but don't ask. I don't know. But if it's only one person and you're just like this tiny little baby person, then maybe you can get in without a problem. I mean, obviously it's not guaranteed, but I have found that certain things, when it's just the one person, it's quite easy for them to accommodate that request, because you can just kind of like slip on in. When it's a big family and all that stuff, it's much harder to bend the rules. The cast members also have a park reservation system. It's not system, I guess. I mean, I guess it is, but like the dates that they see for park reservations is much more expansive than what we see. I learned this a few years ago when I was there solo, and there was actually a hurricane, and I had a Keys to the Kingdom tour booked the day that the parks closed because of the hurricane. So that got canceled, no problem. I mean, there was a bit of a problem. It was a hurricane, but whatever. The next day, I was able to get a Keys to the Kingdom reservation, which I was so happy about, but I couldn't get a park reservation. And I was like, I don't like this. And so I talked to a cast member at my hotel, and, I didn't expect anything. I was like, hey, can you help me out? And they were able to help me out, no problem. And I said, are you seeing what I see? Because I'm not seeing, like, I feel bad if I'm asking you to do something I could do myself. And she was like, no, we see a lot more than you. So again, park reservations, sure, but it's not a huge barrier if you have an Incredipass and you want to go on a busy day. No, don't call and do it. You need to be in the parks. You need to already be in the parks to do it. So what do you get with this pass? You get entry into all the parks, all of the days of all of the year. So yay. Think of it like a park hopper. And it's funny because when I first bought the pass, I was like, oh, right. It's like a park hopper. I hadn't even considered that, but of course it is. So you can get into all the parks on all the days, all the year. It's wonderful. Again, you have 5 park reservations at the same time. Parking is covered, which was a perk that they had that as a perk, and then they took it away, and then they brought it back. I don't drive, so I don't pay attention to the parking. I had to remind myself to say that for this particular episode. You also get particular discounts on food and merchandise. It's usually about 20% for merchandise. The food discount changes, but it's not for all food. It's not usually for quick service and snacks. There are also hotel discounts, but there's always discounts. So I definitely booked with my annual pass discount, but I don't remember it being so spectacularly better than my Canadian resident discount that I have right now for my upcoming reservation. There are also other perks and things like that. For example, you get a magnet, and sometimes there are pass holder days, and there is often pass holder specific merchandise at the food festivals and at some gift stores and things like that. So there are these things. And when you go on the website, it's going to show you all these bells and whistles of everything that you're getting. I'm gonna pause there because it's not quite as shiny as that might seem. I really did enjoy going during these pass holder days that they would have every once in a while, where, for example, they had a discount on all of the food festival booths. I loved that. There was another pass holder day that I was there where I was able to apply my discount to the Vineland outlet mall, which, if you've been a regular listener, know that I love that as my first stop to get some of my shopping out. And one time I was there during the summer, and they turned the restaurant at the back of Morocco, the old Sultan's tent, into a pass holder lounge where there had snacks and you could meet and greet the genie, and there was a little craft you could do, which was pretty cool. And you could also just charge your phone and relax and all that stuff. So, they have some perks. I'm going to talk about, as I think I've already hinted to in that list, how some of these things are not quite as amazing as you think when you are so excited to buy your pass. And look, I made use of them. It was great. I'm not saying that it wasn't, but I'm just going to pop the bubble in some of that marketing, I think. So I don't think that you should buy or think about or consider an Incredipass for any of those discounts necessarily, because things ebb and flow all the time. Again, yeah, it was great to have all those discounts, but they weren't so consistent that I really missed it when I didn't have those discounts. Instead, what is the equation you need to think of when you are deciding if you are going to get an Incredipass for the upcoming year is, are you taking 3 or 4 trips at minimum a year? And across those 3 or 4 trips, you are going to do at least 12 days in the parks, possibly park hopping during those 12 days. So I'll say that again, 3 to 4 trips a year, and across those 3 to 4 trips, a minimum of 12 days, preferably that are park hopping. If you think that fits you, then yes, the Incredipass is worth getting 100%. However, if you're like, oh, you know what, I think I'm going to go in the winter and I'm going to do like a little writing retreat for 2 weeks, and so I'll get a pass because, I just, like me, the podcast host, just said 12 days. So if this hypothetical person was like, I'll go during the winter and I'll be at the parks for 14 days, so it'll be worth it. No, it won't be worth it, because the Disney ticket park pass decreases the price per day the more days you add on. So, for example, if you're going for 1 day, it's going to be X amount of dollars. However, if you're going for 7 days, all of a sudden that X amount becomes less every single day. So I have told this story, I think, before, but when I was going to Disney with a former partner, gosh, like 20 years ago, that seems so weird to say. We were going for a whole week, but I wanted to like save money and I only got 5 days worth of park passes, 5 days or 6 days, something like that. But we were having so much fun that I totally forgot that. And on our last full day, my partner and I, we go walking up to Magic Kingdom and we go and swipe our bands, and they're like, oh, you don't have a park ticket for today. And I was like, what do you mean? And they're like, no, it was just for 5 days or 6 days and you've already used them. And I just felt so embarrassed. So I was like, okay, well, I guess we can see if we can buy another ticket. And I didn't, I felt so like silly and so like ashamed that I did not think about that and plan accordingly. That I was like, let's just walk over to Contemporary and talk to a cast member there. I don't want to get rejected at Magic Kingdom again. Like, it was like too much. I also think the line was pretty long at Magic Kingdom customer service. So we walk over to Contemporary, we tell them the big story as if like they care. And they're like, oh, so you want to add a day? And we're like, yeah. And they said, okay, well, it's going to be $11. And we're like, $11? Yeah, $11 per person. Then we're like, yeah, no problem. Like, this is my former partner, but we still talk quite regularly and we joke about that all the time. Like, it would have cost us more to not go to the park. Like, it was crazy how little it was to add this extra day. But yeah, once you buy tickets for 4 or 5 days, all of a sudden it becomes super dirt cheap for the rest of it. And if you're going for 7 days, 8 days, 14 days, 21 days, I mean, God bless you, then all of a sudden the price per day gets increasingly low. So don't think that you're going to do it all in one time and that's going to make it worth it. No. If you're thinking about using the Incredipass, you have to remember how the prices always shift. So 3 to 4 trips over the course of 12 months. And in those 3 to 4 trips, you're going to go to the park a minimum 12 times and probably park hop. That's the main factor. The discounts you can't really rely on, and like, oh, my hippopotamus from that I talked about in the last episode, if I save 20% on that, sure, that's great, but that isn't going to make up for, a 2,000 Canadian annual pass, right? The discounts are bonuses. For me as a Canadian, the 20% discount helped me remember what the exchange rate was, for example. Whenever I got a discount at a restaurant or through a hotel, again, it was like a bonus. But the math of it's worth it is based on that equation. 3 to 4 trips with a minimum of 12 days across those 3 to 4 trips, park hopping. So when I got an annual pass for the first time, it was because I've been going to Disney solo since pretty much the pandemic. That's really when this all kind of started. So I had been doing my solo trips and my semi-solo trips for about 2 years. And when I decided to get an annual pass, I realized you know what? I definitely think I'm going to go 4 times this year. And because of the length of flight and all that stuff and how much I love it here, I'm going to be there for 3 to 4 days on each one of those trips. So I think it's going to be worth it. Also, I do need to admit that I was seduced by the scarcity model that they created when they put the annual passes back up for sale. I was like, you know what? I'm going to get in the virtual line and do it and all that stuff. So I fed right into their marketing in that case. But I had thought about it because I had also looked at the prices, and I had done that math before, and I realized the likelihood of me going at least 3 or 4 times in the upcoming year with 12 days minimum across those trips would definitely be doable. So I did it for 2 years, which was great. The other thing that's important to know is that the annual pass begins the first day you go to the park. It doesn't begin when you buy it. So I don't remember when I bought the annual pass, but I wasn't there when I bought it. It was definitely like a month or 2 months afterwards when it actually activated, and that's when it started. So that's something good to remember too. Like if you got, a year-end bonus and you have $2,000 that you're just sitting on and you're like, what should I do with this? And you want to put it towards an Incredipass, like go for it. But if you can't make your first trip until April, then don't worry, you haven't wasted any money. So I loved having the pass as a solo traveler because I was able to come and go as I pleased. And part of the most wonderful thing about solo travel to Disney is that flexibility to do what you want and that flexibility to appreciate things. Like one of the things that people say all the time during the solo stories is that one of their favorite things to do when they're there solo is just like to take in the vibes. So when I had the annual pass, I would go into the parks for just like a couple hours and then come out, and I didn't feel pressure to like do all the things and eat all the things and ride all the rides because I knew I had access to I knew I had unlimited access to all those things. And as I'm saying this out loud, I'm like, again, the marketing worked. But for me, even though I'm like fitting right into the marketing, that was a perfect way to do solo trips because, one of the things I've talked about on the podcast is that I have already done a whole bunch of episodes about like the resorts, but I want to do more about what it's like to just like do resort days and do a resort focused trip. And when I had the annual pass, that was much more doable because I was like, this whole city, twice the size of Manhattan, the size of San Francisco, is available to me. The parks, yes. The hotels, yes. And they're equally available to me. So I would go back and forth between doing something at a resort, chilling at a resort, going at the park, and back and forth. Like, do some things at Epcot and then walk and visit the boardwalk or the yacht club or the beach club, and then maybe take a nap in one of their lounges or the lobbies, and then walk over to Hollywood Studios and do something there, and then take the Skyliner over to Riviera and have a lavender iced tea, which is my favorite. Like there was just so many things that I could just kind of be casual about it because I knew I could come and go as I pleased. Also, having the annual pass was great for semi-solo vacations. So I've talked a lot about that. Sometimes I would do semi-solo vacations and my mom would come because she loves Florida and she loves the customer service at Disney, but like she doesn't need the parks. So when I had the annual pass, I would be like, okay, well, I'll see you in a couple hours. I'm going to go do some things in the park and then I'll see you later. Like one time I like left her at Wilderness Lodge and I was like, just be here 2 hours from now or 3 hours from now because you never quite know, but like just be here 2 hours from now. I'm going to go to Magic Kingdom and I'll see you later. And she's like, okay. and I come back and she's like, do you know about everything that's happening at this particular resort? And I was like, okay, cool. Another time I was like, okay, well, I'll see you at the Grand Floridian. And I leave Magic Kingdom after doing like an hour and I get on the bus and she's like walking from the Grand Floridian to Magic Kingdom and she like waves at me and she's like, okay, well, I guess I'll see you at the next resort. And it was great because I got my park fill and I got to do my I got to do my solo stuff at the parks, but I could also spend time with her. My mother goes to bed early as well. So every night it was just kind of expected that, we'd have dinner together and then I'd be like, okay, see you later. And I would go to whatever park was open the latest and I would, do my own thing. And it was great. It was a really nice balance between solo time at Disney and time with family. When I don't have the annual pass, that's much more difficult. And so this was something I really struggled with when I was planning our December trip, because it was the first December in the last 3 years or whatever that I didn't have an annual pass. So it's one thing to say, okay, well, like, bye, I'll see you in an hour. Stay at this beautiful air-conditioned resort. There is where you can get coffee, because if you have been a long-time listener, you know that my mom loves espresso and a good coffee. So it's one thing to like leave her for a couple hours or even a half a day. But it's a total other thing if you are buying a full park ticket and you are there with other people and you're like, okay, well, see you at the end of the day, I guess. Like that is look, do it, no problem. But that's kind of weirder. Like I know some of you are thinking of semi-solo trips when you are there with your family or when you are there for a work event. And so when you have the annual pass, it's easy to get your couple-hour Disney fix when there are other people. You're doing the main part of the travel with other people and you can do your solo time in the parks. But if you have to pay full price for that ticket, you're not going to go for 2 hours. You're not going to go for 3 hours. And that can really influence your time. So, for example, I met this woman at the Beacon Barrel, and she was also there solo, and she was there with her sister and her baby niece, but they were napping, right? Like the niece was like 2 years old or whatever. So they were napping, and she was at the bar by herself trying this drink. And she was like, yes, solo trips. That's also great. And it, like if she had an annual pass, then she could do more of those, like, oh, rather than just go back to the park that we spent the day at and have the park ticket for, I can do any park right now. I can go back at night. I can do all this. I can do all that. And it really does offer up this freedom that I really missed when I was there in December doing the semi-solo trip, and I really miss when I'm thinking about future solo trips. I also found when I had an annual pass, it was a lot easier for my brain to be like, oh, well, I should go to Disney for this long weekend. Like not an actual long weekend because I don't like the crowds, but like to take a Monday and a Friday off and like do a long weekend. I should do it because I basically get into Disney for free. So I'm just paying for the flight and the hotel. And it really made me think about doing those solo trips more frequently because I had the annual pass. Again, the marketing did work for me. And it was much more easy for me to think about a solo trip because I had the annual pass. So even though I have like a lot of other things happening, the Festival of the Arts trip, I think it would have been a much easier decision for me to take the trip, the one that I'm taking in a couple weeks, if I had an annual pass, because when I'm doing like the math about what it might look like this particular, the finances for this particular trip, I am not adding like essentially a $300, again, Canadian park ticket onto that. I'm just looking at the flight and I'm just looking at the hotel and it's like, wow, what a bargain. But then as soon as I'm adding the park ticket, that there's no way of getting a bargain once you're there. But if I had an annual pass, it would have been a much, much easier decision for me. So the annual pass was great for semi-solo trips, but also great for solo trips. And like, sure, let's say you're going to go to Disney with your family this year, but you're also thinking that you could go another couple times by yourself, then you don't need to get passes for everyone. You can just get passes for yourself. So you can kind of think of it as like, I don't know if you can apply your healthcare savings account to it, but I think it's a reasonable expense. So when I have bought just the day tickets, I definitely feel like I have to make greater use of my day. and my time in the parks. I feel greater pressure to ride all the rides, to spend as much time as possible, to really squeeze as much out of that particular day. I take out that pressure when I have an annual pass. And while I felt it a little bit, I guess, when like before I had an annual pass, I would just plan the trips differently, although I would really struggle if I should get just like a single park day or a park hopper. I would spend a lot of time thinking about that. And again, I don't have to think about that when I had the annual pass. I now am feeling a lot more of that pressure to make the most of my days when I'm in the park. And I don't love that. Again, it feels a lot like the scarcity model. It feels like I'm not as in control of my schedule. And I can imagine for those of you who aren't going to Disney as often as I have been able to have the privilege to be able to, that it puts extra pressure on this like precious, precious solo trip. Now, although my friends with toddlers have never asked me, my number one advice would be for going with toddlers would be to identify like 3 or 4 rides or experiences, look at the menus beforehand, and just let the kids experience the wonder without like pressuring them to like look at this and that. I think one of the reasons why there's so many meltdowns between parents and kids at a place like Magic Kingdom is because there is so much pressure on that particular day because of how much you have spent, that you need the kids to be like, you need them to download the magic, to mainline that magic in whatever way and shape it looks like. And that would be my advice for people with toddlers. However, I really thought about that advice in December when I was there for that one day, because I was like, oh yeah, I should get everything I can out of this one day because I'm only going to be in the parks for one day. So I recognize the pressures a little bit more, and I don't have a really great response to that right now. I mean, all of the advice that I've given in the podcast over the last almost 3 years now apply, but I do recognize that maybe it's not just so easy to be like, go for an hour vibes if you have just spent $300 Canadian on a single park ticket. With that being said, though, it is a solo trip. Don't let anyone, including Mickey Mouse, bully you into doing more than you can do and want to do in a day. And I think that going with like your own rhythm about what that day might look like, even if it's not like maxing out the dollar per minute, is still going to give you a better solo trip. So why am I not renewing it this year? Okay, that's a great question. I would love to tell you that. Okay, so last April, I decided not to renew my pass for a few reasons. The first one is if you renew your pass right after, like you renew your pass, you get a 15% discount on the pass. But I knew that there is no way I was going between April and August. Just like the way the schedule of my life was going to be, there was no way I was going to go before what I usually do around my birthday. So I talked to a cast member when I was thinking about renewing. And while we didn't have our calculators out doing this math, we both kind of came to the logical conclusion that even though I would be saving 15% if I renewed in April, because I wouldn't be going for 3.5 months at the minimum, that it actually would kind of be like the same price if I just bought a new pass in August. So I was like forfeiting that discount, but I also was not paying for time I was never going to use. So if I renewed in April, I would have got a 15% discount, and it would have renewed, like it would have been April to April. But I wasn't going until August. So if I just bought it again in August, then I would have a pass from August to August, and I wouldn't have the 15%, but I also wouldn't have like those 3 or 4 months that would be wasted. So that was just like a good reminder. Like, yeah, okay, 3 to 4 trips, 12 days across those trips, great. But if this is like the linchpin about whether or not I'm going to go over the next 4 months, then like that discount isn't actually a discount. So that was good to put some things in perspective before I like clicked renew. The other thing was that I was really interested in going to more after hours events and to go to more parties. So the like Mickey's Very Merry Christmas and the Booty You, all of that stuff. I had gone a little bit the previous years. You've seen those episodes and those photos and all that stuff. And I was interested in doing some more of those things, but I was really insulted. Speaking frankly, I was really insulted by the discount that annual pass members get. So let's say a ticket is like $160. The discount the pass holders get for some of the dates, not even all of the dates, is like $10. Honestly, that's nothing. Like, I would rather they didn't offer anything than $10. $10 is so insulting because you're already paying such a premium, and now they're going to be like, here's like a pittance of a discount. And if they had like, special pass holder discounts of food once you're in the parties, or I don't know, something special, then like that would make up for the lack of discount. But I just was like, I don't love this. And then also, if you do like the math of it, the evening parties start at around 6 or 7 o'clock. And you can get, if you have a party ticket, you can get into the park starting at 3 p.m. So what a lot of people will do is they'll buy the party ticket and then they'll get in at 3 and they'll do the park from 3 until the party starts, and then they'll do the party, which is great. But I've already paid for that day as an annual pass holder. So I'm not getting that benefit, that like extra benefit. So it felt like, it felt like icky. I mean, it's not that I'm cheap. I just was like, we've paid so much more for this. I feel like, I don't know. I just felt like, I don't know. I found all of that kind of uncomfortable. So I was like, I could go and do a series of evening events, like after hours evening events, and pay regular price. And if I didn't have an annual pass, it would like cost me the same. Like it didn't really make any sense. So for example, if you're going in the summer, you can do that. They offer after hours events at almost all the parks, and it's because it's so hot. So they want to give you an opportunity to enjoy the parks and not die. So you can, if you're a night person and you don't mind doing things in the evening, that is an option for you. That is something special. You get all your snacks and all that stuff. And it's, it's not the same as a park ticket, but it's like this extra thing. And then you don't even need to think about the annual pass of it all. The other reason why I didn't renew, and this is going to just seem so like, basic maybe, is that at Christmas time I was part of a Facebook group that was like annual pass holders, and for the last 2 years people would like post the things that they were getting from as being an annual pass holder. They would post the wrapping paper, and then I think another year they got like Christmas ornaments. I mean, they're not expensive, nothing is fancy, but I didn't get any of that because I'm Canadian and they don't ship to Canada. So I felt, and then I called them and complained, and I was like, well, I'm going to be at Disney next week or whatever. Can I just pick up my annual pass present then? And they're like, no, we don't have a place for you to do that. And I just felt like that wasn't great. That really like puts me as a second class citizen when I have to spend even more to be at Disney as a Canadian than even out-of-state Florida pass holders. So, out-of-state Florida pass holders or obviously Florida pass holders. So I didn't love that. The same thing with the like magnets and lounges and pass holder discount and pass holder days and all of that stuff. So when you're a pass holder, you get a magnet, and they offer a few during the year. But I wasn't there every time they had magnet giveaways, and they don't announce them that far in advance that I can organize my trip around that. And so, all the other pass holders that were able to be at Disney all the time could get all these perks. And again, here I am with my Incredipass being like, what? I don't even get like the magnet after like afterwards. Oh, there's going to be these annual pass holder days where you're going to get all these extra discounts, but I needed to know about them like a month in advance to book a trip. So I didn't really like that. I thought it really made the experience of being a pass holder as a Canadian, like I said, like a second class citizen. And I definitely didn't love that for how much I was paying. I also really thought that when I was a pass holder, it would feel special or VIP in some way. Like in my mind, there was a bit of like a metaphoric yellow carpet, yellow because that's the color of the annual pass, that was really like include me in a club that I wasn't part of. And I didn't really feel that. It really just felt like, oh my gosh, I just got this memory. Do you remember back in the day where there'd be like a fundraising thing for your school and you would sell these big book of coupons? Yeah. So sometimes it just felt like I was carrying like a big book of coupons, but it was like, oh yeah, everyone has an annual pass. It's not really a big deal. And I don't know, I didn't love that. I felt like I was making a really big investment. I was coming from Canada. I was really excited. And it really didn't seem like it made a huge difference to my experience. And again, I didn't love that. And the final reason why I didn't renew my pass this year is because I was on the fence about this particular like Festival of the Arts trip. And then what I really want to do is do a larger, expensive club level deluxe resort trip at the end of August for my mother's birthday. So that wouldn't be a solo trip. So I'm thinking that this year there'll be fewer brief solo trips and more one big expensive trip with my mother again because it's her 75th birthday. So just practically, that math of getting an annual pass doesn't work because I am anticipating that I am not doing 3 to 4 trips this year of 12 days each. When I go in August for my mother's trip, if that works out, like sure, I'll get park tickets for that. Right now, there's a really good deal for Canadian residents and park tickets. So sure, I'll get multiple tickets, but I can't anticipate enough of trips over the next year. So it was also just the feeling of being like, I don't know if this is that great. And also, right, it's actually just not going to make financial sense. But I did love having it for the freedom. So I have now gone to Disney 3 or 4 times. Oh gosh. No, I went to Disney in August, December, and then January. And across those 3 trips, I'll have only been in the parks for 4 days across those trips because I was doing resort stuff, which is always like an amazing trip. And it's really, not having annual passes really shaped those trips. So while it is the right decision to not have an annual pass right now, these are the things that I miss or have reconsidered as a solo traveler to Disney World. 1, I've been hesitant to book trips. Before it'd be like, okay, if I got this great deal on a flight and a good deal in a hotel, I've already paid for my park days, like why not go? But like I talked about for this January trip, it's like, oh, well, the park ticket is going to be twice the price of my hotel. Like, is it worth it? So I have been hesitant to book more trips without the annual pass. 2, something I've talked about before, semi-solo trips have gotten a lot harder. It was a lot, like I did a lot of thinking about how to do the logistics of the semi-solo trip for December, and I definitely would have spent more time in the parks if I had an annual pass during the semi-solo trip with my mother. And it's not like I would have spent like less time with her. It's just that I would have like the downtime, for example, I would have gone to the parks. Like the day that we arrived, I would have gone to the parks for an hour. But instead, actually, we had a really great first day. We saw a friend of the podcast and we did a whole bunch of stuff. But, I would have spent more time in the parks, but not necessarily less time with her. So it has made semi-solo travel a little bit more difficult. And I also have just felt, as I've mentioned before, more pressure when I'm in the parks to do more, to see everything, to like really make the most of it, like do the rides, eat the foods, do the things, feel the vibes, like all that stuff. And I am thinking about like the money per minute in a different way than when I've done my own solo trips without that. So that's something I'm going to have to like learn to work through, but I have like noticed it's been different without the annual pass. So in sum, I do miss it. It hurts to buy like one or two park days at full price for sure. I've missed being asked if I'm a park pass holder and saying yes. Like I feel like I'm doing a disservice to Disney when I'm like, no, not right now, as if like they care. I miss seeing if I can get a better deal on my room because I have another discount open to me. I miss the idea of Disney feeling free because I have an annual pass, but it doesn't make sense for me to have an annual pass right now. And it does change the way I'm going to do solo vacations, but that doesn't mean I'm going to stop doing solo vacations. They're just going to look different. There is going to be more resort time. There is going to be more strategy with the park days. And again, if my mother's not much of a planner, so I'm hesitant about the trip in August because of just how different she is with planning than I am. But like I am planning on like more expensive single experiences than like amortizing those costs over a year. But I hope that this and me talking through my thinking about the annual pass over the last 3 years have helped you see if whether or not an annual pass is right for you. I remember my last trip on the last day in the last hour before I had to get on the plane with my annual pass. I had been at the Grand Floridian. I think I had lunch there. And then I took the boat over to Magic Kingdom, and I was going to take the bus over to my hotel, get my luggage, and take an Uber to the airport. And as I am about to get, to the area where the buses are, I was like, I'm just going to go to Magic Kingdom. And I did. I swiped in, and I was just at Magic Kingdom looking at the beautiful castle for like 15 minutes. And that was really great. And I just felt so thankful that I've been able to have all those experiences. And if you think that you are going to do, again, 3 to 4 trips this year with a minimum of 12 days, usually park hopping, and you like that freedom, you like the fact that you can just pop in and out, you like being able to maximize your own time, then yeah, get the Incredipass, like for sure. And I do not regret getting it the last 2 years, but again, it just doesn't make sense right now, and that's cool. I keep telling myself. One more thing that I thought of that I wanted to make a note of, so if this sounds different, it's because I've thought of this at the end of editing, is that I just round up the pass in my brain to $2,000. It's less than that American. Again, it's 1,650, but so I just rounded up to 2,000 in my brain, I guess, with the Canadian conversion as well. So sometimes $2,000 can seem like a lot of money, and sometimes $2,000 is like, oh, okay, that's not that much money. And like, it depends on your income, of course, but also like sometimes just like how much your grocery bill was. So if you are thinking of the annual pass at $2,000 a year or whatever, that's basically like $35 a week. And I feel like a lot of people can be like, oh, I can afford $35 a week. So you can also think about getting an annual pass as a bit of a gift for yourself for a whole year. So that is actually one of the motivating factors. When I got the annual pass for the first time, I was like, this year I want to go to every single one of the food festivals. And I did that year. And actually it was like at the end of that annual pass year that I decided to do the podcast, because I was like, I'm gathering so many experiences. It'd be great to talk about that. So I was like, I am going to rationalize this annual pass by being like, one of my like cool leisure goals for the year is to do all of the food festivals at Epcot. So that was like a gift I was giving myself over a course of a year. Lauren, who's a friend of the podcast, who I mentioned earlier, she got an annual pass because she was going to be doing like, okay, this is going to be my year of Disney. And she was able to drive down and do multiple trips. That's amazing. Maybe it's your 40th birthday or your 50th birthday or your 30th birthday. Maybe it is like the year you're getting divorced. Maybe it is like post degree or post like graduation, or like you're leading up to the graduation and then it's going to be post, like there could be a lot of things that you want to celebrate over the course of 1 year. And in that case, you can strategize your whole year using the annual pass as a bit of an organizer and a motivator. And if you go back to last week's episode, for example, when I talked about like the seasons of Disney and some resolutions and stuff around that, you could parlay that into like a full year vacation, essentially, using the annual pass as that organizer and that motivator. So I don't know, like sometimes when I'm listening to this episode, I think I'm being like so positive, and sometimes I'm thinking so negative, but I just want to like throw that out there that, yeah, that's a lot of money for an annual pass, but also it might not be a lot of money because it is amortized over the whole year. And maybe it is something that you want to invest in yourself for a whole year. And I know that people, when they are planning like a big milestone birthday and things like that, they do have some big goals, and like going to Disney and like living all your dreams is definitely up there. So I just wanted to like end on that note as well. Speaking of things that may or may not be financially viable, is the DVC program, the Disney Vacation Club program. So next Thursday, I'm going to post an episode that I did with Jeff Fun, who I have interviewed before. He's now a friend of the podcast, and he's going to talk about his experience as a DVC owner. I've done another interview with Francine, also a friend of the podcast, about her experiences as a DVC owner. That one's on Patreon, so you can listen to both of them and then make a decision about whether or not it's right for you. I loved the analogies that they both came up with to rationalize it, and it's kind of like the annual pass, right? You can do the math and you can make it work, or you can do the math and be like, okay, let's take a step back. But hey, no judgment how you do that Disney math, no judgment at all. All right, I think that's it. Have a great rest of the week. Hey Solos, it's Samantha. I hope you enjoyed this episode and all the episodes of Disney Solo Magic, the #1 podcast for solo travel to Disney World. You can reach me on all of the different social media. All of those links are in this description below. You can also listen to this podcast on Apple, Spotify, and on YouTube. It'd be really great if you rated, reviewed, and subscribed. It's really a wonderful way to let other people know about the podcast. And as you know, we also have a Patreon where you can get bonus content, you can get bonus episodes, you can get all of the videos of us doing the solo stories, and a whole bunch more. So come and join us on Patreon. And thanks again for listening to the podcast. Bye.